What is up, guys? It has been a minute since we've done a masterclass, and I'm excited for this one because I got my good buddy Grant Schneider with us today. And guys, if you are working, set aside whatever you're working on and start listening in. If you're driving, really tune in because this is going to be a really good masterclass, completely different, first-time guest on the show. Grant, I think you've actually been a RE Source fan for a while, though, right?
Oh man, I've been watching you since the beginning. So it's pretty cool to be able to be on it myself. This is awesome.
Appreciate it, buddy. So for those of you who don't know Grant, Grant's a top performer, has been for quite a long time, really young guy. I'm kind of titling this masterclass, lessons coming down the mountain, because one of my most favorite conversations in life in general is just talking to somebody that's kind of been up that mountain professionally, maybe even personally, and they're coming down the other side. And I'm like, hey, tell me what you learned. And a lot of times their perspective is different than you think. And that's why I love it, because, what did they learn? And they're coming back down that I could take maybe on the way back up the mountain. So this is lessons learned and shared coming back down the mountain with Grant Schneider, who is one of the top, may finish the top VA originators in the country this year. I'm rooting for him. What number are you in right now, Grant? You think probably top 3-ish at least, maybe 4?
In that ballpark, yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Husband, father, originator, amazing work-life balance, top performer. Realtors, lenders, listen in because this guy's wickedly and quietly smart. And I'm so happy he took time to get on the show with us to kind of share his story. So Grant, first, thanks, man, for jumping in and hanging out with us.
Glad to be here.
So we had a conversation. Actually, I was listening to another interview that you did, and you don't do a whole lot. You're kind of the quiet guy behind the scenes, just crushing it. And you don't really know, but I took some notes from that conversation, and I called you right away. I was like, man, we got to get you on the show. I've been thinking about having you on the show, but after that, I know for sure I want you on the show. So some of the notes I took down from that conversation were on my own terms. A lot of times we chase success, and it's typically not on our own terms. It might be on your boss's terms or your company's terms. Or you may just chase success and go, it's worth not being a good husband, father. It's worth whatever it costs. So for you said on my own terms, 700% growth is what I wrote down in 7 years after making the decision to pursue your niche and passion. I thought that was really cool to see the explosion of growth after you really said, yeah, I'm not going to chase all these shiny lights. I'm going to chase this one that I'm really passionate about. We'll unpack this later. The 10 business you said typically comes in a 10-year cycles. 2 that are really, really good. We just had those. 2 that are really, really bad. We're probably having those right now. And then the other 6 are good to mediocre. I may have paraphrased that a little bit, and I'll let you unpack that further, but I thought that was interesting. One other one that was funny, you were talking about like top performers. Like, guys, if you hate to close 3 to 4 units a month, you're really going to hate closing 20 to 30 a month. And then the last 2, you said, when I was a young originator looking up to top performers, I always thought, just like when we were young, that our parents had it figured out. And you're like, as a top performer, we don't. And neither did our parents. They were figuring it out as we go too. So that was funny. And the last one is what I'll throw to you, which was a pretty interesting statement. You said, I was number 1. I was at the top of my game in the industry and I wanted to quit. So let's start there. Like, catch the audience up. I know a bit of the story of how you got to that point of achieving what everybody tries to get to. And you almost said, you know what, screw this. It's not worth it. So catch us up and then let us know what happened after that.
Got it. So 2006, I start the industry in the industry at 20 years old. I know nothing about the industry. I don't have any family in the industry. I just kind of fall in. And so we know that in a couple of years, we're going to go through some really trying times, right? Mm-hmm. And I almost actually quit about 2 years in. Business was tough. I didn't know if I was going to renew my license. I finally do that. And the next quarter, 2009, first quarter of 2009, I actually closed more transactions in that quarter after I made the decision to stay in and than I did the previous year combined. And so what I did is I took the money that we had made from that quarter and invested in myself, opened up a net branch, and here it is 2010, and I decide I'm going to niche down, right? I'm going to focus on a niche because in that market, a lot like what we're seeing right now, a lot of the programs kind of went away. And so guidelines got really tight and we were all doing the same thing, vanilla, VA, FHA, conventional loans. And I needed to find something that was going to make me different, right?
What got you to that point though, to like go, I don't like the vanilla, like what pushed you to go, I need to find something that I'm really passionate about?
Yeah, well, honestly, I never really see myself as a great sales guy, right? And so I had a hard time figuring out what was my conversation going to be when I sat down with a realtor, right? What was I going to say that was going to make me different? And so actually at the time I had a recruiter reach out to me, and at that time I was doing fine. I wasn't looking to make a change. And they brought up that this company was focused on doing VA home loans. And for whatever reason, I didn't hang up the phone over the next 15 minutes. But by the time that call was over, I had made the decision to jump on a plane and head to their corporate headquarters to learn more. And so that was a game changer time in my career. For the next 7 years, as I joined that company and focused on doing VA loans and being the VA loan guy in town, I would grow my business by 700%. And so a pretty wild time. So that's 2010 through 2016. And everything from the outside looking in, people go, man, this guy's crushing it. He just must be living the dream, right?
Mhm.
And so the issue was I wasn't doing it on my terms at that point. Business was growing super, super fast. I wasn't building the team around me correctly. And I was devoting everything 100% focused just on the next deal. And it was 2016, I finally became the number one originator, not just at that company, but potentially even the number one VA originator in the country that year. Didn't
Wow.
really follow Scotsman Guide
Well,
at the time. And I remember it was December 31st, and I'm sitting down with my wife. It was a close race with me and another loan officer at the company. And I get the news that I finished first. And guess what? There were no fireworks, no confetti from the sky. And I'm sitting there just tired, exhausted. I've been running as hard as you can for the last 7 years. Lost my hobbies, lost a lot of friends. Marriage wasn't as strong as it could have been. And honestly, we had just had our first child within that year, and was realizing a lot of things needed to change, and I was done. I had made tons of money. That's the one thing I focused on.
mhm.
And I did a good job of that. Did everything else really poorly. And so, sat down with my wife and was like, man, I think I'm done. I really am. And, she's always keeps me on track, and she goes, well, do you remember what you did before you got in the mortgage industry? And I was like, yeah, I worked at that Mexican restaurant, little manager here. Let's
Yeah.
stir some tables. She goes, yeah, that's not going to fund the life that we built. Right. And so we decided to change, stop everything right there and kind of rebuild. And that's when I really started to focus on building the business on my terms,
Love that.
and so that was a big pivotal moment. And so we've gone through some tough times. We've gone through 08, 09, right? Where I thought, and similar feelings as to this market right now, where getting a deal is difficult. And certainly even the guys at the top are still thinking, man, is this my exit? Am I done? Am
Yeah.
I done with this? And I'll have to tell you, I was closer to quitting when I was number one than I am today, or than I was in 08 or 09, because I lost my identity. I lost my passion. I lost, what I'm here for, and without any of those to look forward to, because I put those all aside, whether it be my health, my passion for baseball, golf, friends,
Mhm.
family, those all sacrificed during that year. And so, right now, as we're sitting in a time where deals are kind of hard to come by, right? And, I'm not happy with where my current production is, but I'll tell you what, there's people that don't do as much production as me that would look up and go, oh my God, if I could just do
Yeah.
what Grant's doing right
For people
now.
that don't know, you're still running at a super high level. I know you're, a competitor, so it's probably doesn't feel like it's enough. But I mean, 99% of the industry would be like, I wish I could have your type of production.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
just for people that know, because I think that's why I think I gravitated to that statement, because I feel like we're in a similar time, and you and I've talked about this. There's a lot of top performers that have been transparent on the stage, like Forcier and others that have done this at a high level, that probably have said the same thing. I was number one, or I am number one now, and I'm not even sure if I know how to do this job anymore. Do I want to do it? So I think it's relevant for those number ones that are here today, like yourself. And then I think it's relevant for people that are trying to get there and maybe getting there and I think that's where you're about to go, at the expense of your family, your hobbies, and other things. I mean, I'd love to, I'll let you kind of finish that up at all. Another story that really hammers this point home was Grant was telling me off air last week or earlier this week about a story where, and this will be pretty provocative statement too, like, I made $1 million and I wanted to burn it. Yeah, like everybody's trying to make $1 million just to get there, and you're like, I had so much resentment. So this is why, guys, again, this is why this conversation is so important. Of course, we're all competitors. We want to get there. but there's a right way and there's a wrong way that Grant's kind of saying, hey, if you get there, be careful because it may cost you everything, or you may have resentment towards, the success that you just had. So for people listening, this is for the number ones that are there now. This is for you and for the people trying to get there. So one of the things you mentioned in your story, Grant, you were talking about 2016, I believe it was, and you were reassessing the business. You grabbed your wife, and it sounded like you guys made that decision together versus you just kind of going off on a retreat, figuring out what you were going to do, and then coming back and then going and executing that. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit with us?
Yeah, well, it's so important that to have that, wonderful work-life balance and that life that we're all, searching for. You've got to have your spouse on the same page, right? And so we actually kind of took it to an extreme. That was the year that she actually decided to join real estate, and really what also transformed our business. And so, now, gosh, 6-7 years in, 2,000 transactions behind her.
2,000, wow.
Yep. The last couple of years, she's averaged almost a home a day, and or over a home a day in closings. I mean, she is just such a hustler. She's been such a huge component of where we're at today, and how our businesses align so well and we work together. I'll tell you what, when you talk about the non-negotiables, when both partners are in the industry, it's even more important. So, she's been such a blessing to my business and really helped change the way we played the game, right? It's been an amazing run. And I would just suggest that not that you get your spouse into the business, right? Lauren, she's a special breed, and she's got a high engine and she's got a lot of horsepower, and done wonderful. But even if your spouse isn't in the industry, which is probably more common, you still need to make sure that
great point.
Yeah, you guys are aligning your interests.
Well, and sometimes they have that perspective that's not in the business can be the most helpful, and a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this too, just try to make that decision. I'll weigh all the pluses and minuses, maybe even talk to some other, people in the business. But it's so funny because I travel a lot, and we'll have dinners with spouses, and I'll hear their perspective, and it's really insightful, and they see things differently than we do. I'll ask a follow-up question before we transition. If she's watching, would you say it was her decision, her idea, or is that your idea back in 2016 to pull her in?
She wanted to be my assistant. And I said, we will be like direct, loan officer assistant. I said, well, we will be divorced in 90 days. So, that is not good. But I have this idea, we can still work together, but why don't you get into real estate, And I had used my knowledge over the first 10 years of my career to help her structure that side of the game. And it's been, wildly successful. And it's just exciting to be kind of, arm in arm with your partner. And, I'm her cheerleader, she's my cheerleader. So when you're in these tough times, you're going through it together. And that's one thing that can be tough to understand, is if your spouse is not in the industry and maybe never been in a sales role or something like that, it can be tough for them to understand what you might be going through right now, why you're not bringing in the big paychecks, why you might be a little bit more stressed than typical, right? But I think I see that as an advantage, but we have to have really strict guidelines on when it's family time, right? And in going to the sporting events and taking those vacations with the family, because we have two that could easily fall off the track.
That makes sense. There's another lesson in there too, coming back down the mountain. A lot of times people will have an idea, and without challenging it, they'll run with it. And your first idea wasn't the best idea. You kind of pushed on it, and there was, a version 2.0 and 3.0. We've shot a couple shows. If you guys missed them, go back. They're called the 4 C's, and how I myself make tough decisions on strategies or personal decisions. We put them through the ringer and the test. And, I love that, the first idea isn't always the best one, and sometimes it's close to it, but you just got to perfect it. So another good lesson, man. I love that you pulled your wife in, and I'm happy. And you're right, there are some challenges to it too, her being in the business, because I'm sure you guys could easily start talking about that one deal going south while you're in Hawaii or at a baseball game. So I love that you're watching that too. Awesome, man.
I think what it all comes down to is I was one of the young guys, early in the industry, looking up to the top producers, and you just assume they have it all figured out, right? They're doing all these loans. A lot of us are pretty good at putting on the show. Hey, we're sales guys, right? I can put whatever hat on that you want. And you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And so I'm not speaking for every top performer out there. There's plenty that have figured it out, right? But there's probably even more who haven't, and maybe not be willing to get in front of a camera um, and say it, But I think it's important for people to hear that if you lose who you are, if your only identity is that you're a mortgage broker, mortgage lender, um, you're gonna find out that you may not love the industry right now as you're doing 4 or 5 deals.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
might feel like you don't have enough free time. You're not spending time doing your hobbies or the things that really provide energy for you. Um, if you get to 24 loans, 34 loans, whatever, you're gonna really hate the industry. You're gonna really hate what you do unless you set the guardrails today. Okay. And that's one of the things I would have loved someone to kind of tell me as I was hard charging, head down. I would take pride in getting into the office at 6 in the morning and leaving at 9 o'clock at night. Those days where it was dark when I was in, dark when I left, no lunch break, right?
Mm-hmm.
Working so hard, like sweating through my shirt, right? I used to take pride in that. But in 2016, I mean, 7 years of just running like you wouldn't believe, that type of growth, I would sit there and think, oh man, I really worked hard today. Man, it's 5 o'clock. Inbox is looking good. And what would happen? You'd hear that little Outlook chime,
Mm-hmm.
and it was another application, right? Who right now would like to hear that chime? I'll sign up for
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
to hear that
Yeah.
new application chime coming in, right? We would all love that. But can you imagine getting to a place where you're just like cursing, like, man, another application? I was going to go have drinks with my buddy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't now. I got to sit here and do this application. There was a time I had shared the story with you on our call, but some of my business came from builder accounts as well, and we weren't always the top, like the aid lender. We've all been in that spot where you're kind of like the backup lender.
Yep. Yep.
And so when they call you, you jump, right? Because you got to take that deal and you're trying to work your way into first position there as their top lender. And it's a Saturday or Sunday. I'm at the grocery store getting groceries for my family, and I get a call from the sales rep. And they go, hey, Sally and John here, they want to buy a house. I need to get pre-approved. Can you do their application on the phone right now? I said, you know what? I'm down the street. I'm about to check out. I'm at the store. Can I call back in a few minutes? Oh, Grant, that's not going to work, dude. I'll have to send them to you. And I said, can you give me 5 minutes? I live really close to you. I left the whole shopping cart, okay, to run home to pull a 500 FICO score, okay?
Geez.
To pull a 500 FICO score.
Oh,
Leave the
man.
entire shopping cart. And it was like one of those where you just sit there and you go, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? I've delayed my honeymoon because I couldn't have enough time for work. I'd be at Disney with my family and they'd be in line to the next ride and I'd have to go find a quiet place to take this next call. I think this story isn't unique. I think a lot of people have been there, done that. You see president's clubs, right? All the producers are, they're sitting by the pool, but
They're
what do
working.
have
They got their
their
computers
laptop?
out. Yeah.
On President's Club,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We've all been there, right? We haven't been able to set those boundaries, systems, and processes in place to give us the life, right? The mortgage industry is an amazing career to have. I'm so thankful that I, honestly just accidentally fell into it, and it's provided an amazing life. But what I would say to anyone that's aspiring to be number one, and you don't need to be number one. There's, like I said, there's no confetti, there's no fireworks. It's
Yeah.
just,
True.
you don't wake up the next day and you look more handsome or more fit because you were number one. Like, you're still the same dude, right? And
Even
so
worse, the next year comes and it resets. And you
Yeah,
got to start that
January
grind
1
all over
comes.
again.
January 1 comes, and guess what?
Yeah.
You're tied with everyone else in the company. And it's that kind of chasing that rat race, right? That can really, really wear on you. So the one benefit I had of getting in the industry at 20 is at 37, 17 years in the business, I'm still 17 years younger than the average loan officer,
Mm-hmm.
And so I just have had a lot to learn, and I was able to learn a lot of these hard lessons prior to, I have 4 children now, right? And so one of the amazing lessons I've heard over and over as I was, getting married, starting a family, and I talked to other top producers or, socialize with other people in our market, they would look at me and almost want to like shake me right by the collar and go, hey, your kids, they grow quick.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you spend enough time with your kids. If there was one message that was always told to me as the young guy coming up, was that. And I took it to heart. It was 2016. My daughter, she was born in late 15. And so she was, a year old. And I'm going, you know what, I'm gonna be a father. So that doesn't mean that you can't do heavy and great business, right? We're still running at a huge great volume, near the top in our industry and our niche. But we're doing it in a way that, you know, the marriage has never been stronger. The relationship with my children, I'm back golfing again. I'm coaching baseball. I'm doing the things that I love. And that's what it's all about, that this wonderful industry can provide such an amazing livelihood, one that we maybe never could have imagined. I don't know many of us who, in second grade, when you have to do the project of what you're going to be when you grow up, put down mortgage broker.
I don't think any of us did,
does
or even realtor, because the realtors watch it out. I don't think anybody wrote either of those things down.
Exactly. So the industry is not our true passion,
Yeah.
right? We said we wanted to be a baseball player, a firefighter, or whatever, right? And so don't make it become your identity, right? So that's all you're good at. Because I'll tell you what, it's not going to go on my gravestone that I was a change maker or a president's club in so-and-so year, that I was a top VA originator for 20, 30 years, whatever it might be. I still don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up, right? But I'm going to take advantage of the mortgage industry while we have it, and just be thankful that it's given me the opportunity to go out and make a difference, both in my family's lives and those around me.
So let me ask you a question, because I'm going to double down your point too, because in my life, thankfully, people came to me at a young age and said, your kids are going to grow up really quick, and you're going to blink and they're going to be graduated. So I've always been focused on making sure I was there and present, for Carson's games or Cameron's games or cheer. And even with that focus at a young age, I didn't tell you this the other day, Facebook does memories, every 10 years, every 5 years. And a couple of them have popped up recently, even with the focus of chasing success and being a good husband and father, guys. I'll tell you this, to hammer down Grant's point, a couple pop up, and I was taking pride in the fact, like you said, that I was, still at the office. I took a picture of outside, it was dark out and I was the only one left, and it was 9 p.m. And it hit me because in the same, it must have been the same week, I had heard somebody said, in 20 years, nobody's going to remember. The only people that remember that you work late are your kids. And even with that focus, I still had resentment at that Facebook memory. And it's like, damn, that was another, even though maybe I spent 4 or 5 nights with them, that could have been another night. Or I could have just called it a day at 5 and gone home and not have to, miss dinner. So I'm hammering down your point, but this is where it comes a kind of an interesting question. I think also a lot of people would say the reason why we've had success in our lives is because we did do that. And I'm a big, my love language in work is grind, is hustle. I respect a lot of people that hustle. And I have to, I'm learning to feather that like you are and balance that. But how, lessons coming back down the mountain, and I think you would agree, there's probably a lot to that. The reason why we did succeed is because we did hustle more than the guy and the gal on our left and right. So what would you tell that person? Okay, Grant, I hear you, but I got to grind. Would you still say grind up till 5, or do you, what's your advice to those folks that are trying to get to your level, but you now know what you now know?
Yeah. Well, here's the kicker. I think you need to set your priorities. Okay. President's Club, becoming number 1 in your company, if those are goals and things like that, they can come and you can still be balanced. Right. And so you're right. It's tough for someone that says, well, you've been there, you made a bunch of money, whatever. And it's easier for you to say you can just kind of take the foot off the gas. I want you to know the foot is not off the gas, right? You get smarter about how to leverage your time.
Yeah. I was hoping you'd go there.
Yep. You start I'm not just out working on my short game all day. I am just trying to work smarter, not harder. And also, you're not at your best when you're pulling 14, 15, 16-hour days. You just aren't, okay? You'd be surprised at how efficient you can be with your task and how much work you can get done, and the level of quality jumps when you're getting up in the morning because you're supercharged that, hey, today, it's 8U practice day. Here's my practice plan right here. That's what I worked on at 4:30 this morning. Not a GFE, not a bank statement loan or whatever everyone else is doing, right? I was up early, not by alarm, because I'm excited to go teach these kids this new hitting drill that we're doing tonight.
I love it.
Right? And so that gets me up. I'm knocking that out. I'm achieving a victory, small victories early in the morning. I think that's so important because then it's just like a domino effect, right? And it compounds throughout the day. We've all heard of the win by noon effect, right?
Yep.
And so I am a proponent of that. Some people get upset when I say, yeah, I try to be done by noon, right? Does that mean I'm done by noon every single day? No, but it's a goal. And that means I'm going to hustle in the morning. Right. And listen, I drop my kids off at school and I pick them up every day. They don't know that I have a job. I don't think so. Because when I pick them up at night, it's game on. Meaning like we're going to their activities.
Super present.
Hey, I'm not coaching my daughter's dance team. Okay. That everyone can appreciate that. Okay. But I am there supporting her.
Yeah.
Right. But I am coaching the baseball team and it's their time with me. Right. So I got to hustle. Right. And it's okay to be selfish with the me time and with your hobbies and your interests and things like that. And so that's the key is it just can't be 16 hours straight of work. Right. And you need to reward yourself with filling your day with those things that you're passionate about. That's what's going to energize you to do your best work anyways.
Yep.
And it comes off. Believe me, when I'm calling that loan application after a 12, 14-hour day at 6, 7 o'clock at night, and I'm just like over it, I guarantee that translates through the following.
Yep.
Right. And so that's what I would say is it's not so much don't work hard. Believe me, Ryan, you didn't get to where you're at and I didn't get to where I'm at without working harder than anyone next to us. Right. And so I would just say, don't do it at the loss of everything else, because you going back to wanting to set fire to the money in the bank. Right. Many of us in our industry, we're making good money. And I would always kind of handle the finances for my family. So I'm always tracking our net worth and investments and things like that. And we were coming up on this giant milestone of net worth and something to be really excited about at our age. And I wasn't excited about it. I looked at it and I almost, I look at the screen and I just want to like go pull it out of the bank and create a bonfire and just get rid of it. Right. Because of what I traded to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, these are all things that I could learn at a young age. I could recover.
Yep.
Right. I'm not on my third marriage. My children love their father. We have a great relationship with each other. Right. Like I'm going to coach their sport team. Like I learned this early enough that I could take corrective action. Right. And so that's when you think these top producers have it all figured out. Just like we think when we were kids that our parents all had it figured out. And then we become parents. And guess what? We're trying to figure it out day by day. We don't have it figured out.
Yeah.
Same thing with the top producers. We put on a pretty good show. We get up to that level and we can put on a pretty good show. There's not too many that will sit there and go, yeah, I struggled with this, or I struggled with that, or I'm on my second marriage. Oh, my kids, I don't get to see them anymore. They don't want to be around me. Those are things that people aren't going to tell you, but they're very true. We've seen it, Ryan, time and time again.
I mean, these lessons apply not just to realtors and lenders, but like any industry. I've studied this for a while. Just top performers in general. Like you look at the Tiger Woods story, if you watch the documentary, he mortgaged everything to become the number one player and was completely miserable. He probably wanted to set fire not to 1 million, but to 1 billion because of what it cost him. Even Kobe, who's, rest in peace, one of the best performers ever to live, sacrificed so much to be that guy. And this is what's sad about his story. I think, a lot of us say this, well, I'll go all in 99% into this thing to become the top, performer. And that'll allow me to retire early and then I'll have time with my family. And I'm sure that was his goal. And I've studied Kobe a lot, and he wanted it. He cared a great deal for his daughters. He wasn't afforded that time. And so all of his life was dedicated at a very young age to basketball. And I think he had hoped to go, well, I'll offset that the backside of my career going all in as a father. And he wasn't afforded that time. So guys, lesson learned from Kobe, Grant, and Tiger, it's not worth, and you will get to that point and have resentment for what you gave to get there. It's not worth that. And putting up those guardrails like Grant talked about, having hobbies that reset you and time with family at 5 o'clock, where you get to not leave the grocery cart empty, but focus on that with your family, will help that you don't resent that in the future. That's an amazing lesson coming down the mountain. And back to your time, the win by noon strategy, I think that's where, and again, studying top performers in our industry and out, that's where you can work and hustle very, very hard and have an amazing work-life balance. Where we get it wrong, most of us, is the inefficiency in our day. Back to win by noon, get really nerdy about the efficiency of your time in the business. And you can be done by noon or maybe noon 30 or 1, not the end of the world.
Yep.
Certainly by 5, if you're really intentional about your time. And this is where I see there's very, very few people, Grant's one of them, that can have an amazing career and an amazing work-life balance as a husband and father, if you're a mother, wife. So what it is, though, is intentionality in the business, and then also intentionality to set that phone down, upside down or off. And like you said, my kids don't even know I'm working because I'm so present when I pick them up, from the time I pick them up to the time I put them in bed. And I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong, is they're super inefficient with their time. And so I've always been somebody that time blocks and commits to that. If it's not in my calendar, it doesn't get done. But also when that calendar's over, shut that book and I'm home with my family. Anything else to add to that, Grant? Because I think that's one of the best lessons we can teach top performers and other people that are already there. I'm sure when you said I was number one and I wanted to quit, a lot of number ones that were listening were like, oh, somebody else felt that way too. It wasn't just me.
Yeah. I think it just helps by setting those guardrails and understanding what your purpose is here in the world, whatever that is, your passions, your purpose, what you're doing to give back, what your legacy is going to be. And you finally separate that from what you do at work.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, maybe there's some people on this call like, hey, I'm going to say I was change maker on my gravestone when I die. Right. Like, that's fine. Okay. But I don't think that's many. And so when you separate that, it's going to help you get through times like we're in right now. Okay. So yeah, I'm taking less loan apps, but I have more time to spend with my family, right? There's a positive there, right?
Yep.
I'm golfing more with my son. It's just because I'm more efficient with my time. I don't have as much work to do right now. And that's not that I'm taking my eye off the prize. We're still getting up. I've got a mission. I've got a model that we're working on that I think is going to pay great dividends into the next decade. And so that's, when we look at the market we're in right now and we look at a business cycle, one of the things we wanted to touch on was the 10-year business cycle and the 10-year mindset. And so I got this actually from the book, The EOS Life. Really awesome, awesome book. And I keep it on my desk because sometimes even I need a little bit of a reminder, and I'll read that chapter about the 10-year mindset. But the basic concept is, and I've seen this, I've seen it firsthand. I can guarantee you this is how it works. But in 0809, we had the slowdown. We had what 0809 was. We were about to have what we're handling right now in 2019. 10 years later, we were about to have that correction, that slowdown. All the conversations, all the mortgage companies with their backs against the rope were happening in 2019. We forget that because 2020, 2021 were such a blur, was such an incredible year. But we didn't get the correction we needed. The market didn't come back to equilibrium like it always does when it gets out of hand.
Yeah.
In fact, that rubber band was stretched even further to lengths we've never seen before, right? Just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were in the industry, hopefully you saved a few of those dollars, right? Because those will come and help right now, right? And so with that said, with the typical retreat back to equilibrium, that got pushed back another 2 years. It should have happened 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And so here we are now paying for it now. So what can we expect? We can expect the correction to take a little bit longer to get back to equilibrium because it's coming from a further distance, right? And so we're maybe, what do you think, Ryan? Maybe halfway through potentially. Hopefully it's a little bit shorter now, but we might have another 12 months to go, right? Pretty easily before we see any life, the heart rate monitor starting to blip again, right? And so as long as you know that in the 10-year cycle, you're going to have 2 years that almost kill you. You have 2 years that are just insane, phenomenal. And then you're going to have 6 good years, good, right? Like you're not going to probably high five yourself over, but hey, you paid the bills, you put a little in savings and you had a good year. So we know we know what bucket we're in right now.
You're right.
Right. And so when you think of it that way, you still have to be planting seeds right now. You still have to, whatever made you successful before, when that market turns back on and what allowed you to grow your business, you still need to be doing those today. It's really tough to do because those actions aren't bearing any fruit right now. Very little.
Yeah.
Right? But that'd be like planting a seed in the ground. Yeah. Planting a seed in the ground today and coming out tomorrow and going, where's a tree?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, hey, I thought you just
been 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so that's all we can do right now is just plant as many seeds as we can. And, one of the greatest things that I think that we're going to notice is that this correction in this market, we've seen loan officers leave the industry in record numbers. And if 40%, I think that was the number, almost 40% didn't renew their license from last year. What do you think the number is going to be this coming year? It didn't get any better.
Right.
It potentially is worse, this year. So man, just imagine how many fewer competition you're going to have.
Yep.
And so I don't want to say the market's giving us this opportunity because we're paying for it, right? We've got anxiety over how
That's
to
a
pay
good
our
point.
bills. Where's the next deal coming from, right? Lack of commissions. I'll tell you, when I compare W-2s, I'm going to be paying a lot for the market coming in and cleansing the industry, right? Reducing the amount of competition for me. But I'll tell you what, every action I do today, what helps me get up and go record that video, reach out to that new agent in the new market and schedule a meeting with them, is I truly feel like the dividend that's going to pay, the return that's going to pay, is much greater than that return would have paid last year in this market, because there's going to be less competition. And agents, so a lender looking for an agent looking for a lender, it's time that we shift our relationships from being just a vendor to a true partner. Okay. And that's one of the things that has made my life and my business just so successful, is that flipping that switch. Okay. When you're a vendor, you feel like you're getting used a little bit, right? You're just one of three. You're just, what have you done for me lately?
Yep.
True partners. And this is the time to partner, because your real estate agents, they need you now more than ever. Right. And so I just think when you look at that lens, am I going to look back 10 years from now and say, 37-year-old Grant, thank you so much for planting those seeds. Look at this amazing orchard that you have for your family.
Love
right?
that.
And so that's what I would just say is, having seen that cycle, the 10-year business cycle, it was going to happen. And then COVID happened. No one could explain that. But we're in that 2 years that are about to kill you. But if you can get out of this, my goodness, that next run, that's what I'm in it for. Right?
Yep.
That's what I'm in it for. All this hard work, all this, and now I can do it on my terms. Yeah, sign me up for one more run. Right? That's what I want.
Love that. Dude, I couldn't have said it better. We're at 35 minutes, and that's a great place to wrap. I've learned so much just on our call, and, we already have a relationship. So, thank you for sharing. Because on the show this year, we talked a lot about opportunity, and just a lot of people don't see, and you phrased it correctly, I believe, like the opportunity. A lot of people just see it as adversity. So I'm glad you touched on that. But what I haven't touched on that you touched on is it does come at a cost. And everything's a cost. To be the number one basketball player came at a cost for Kobe, and came at a cost for Tiger for golf. This opportunity isn't going to come for free. It's a great point. I love that perspective. It will be painful and it will cost, but it is an opportunity. And there is going to be a run on the backside. And we've done some talks recently. Every 3 minutes, 30 seconds, a realtor leaves the business, and about 40% of LOs have gotten out of the business at this point. And it may be worse next year, to your point. If you can outlast and if you continue to plant seeds, I really do believe that what Grant said, that there's going to be an amazing run on the backside. And man, to wrap everything up, dude, like what you've shared today is get super passionate and intentional about your business, but also be super passionate and intentional in your personal life with your family and your hobbies, and make sure you allot time to both. What an amazing, several lessons coming back down the mountain, Grant. And I have a feeling that you're going to be back by popular demand really, really soon. So thank you so much for sharing that, dude.
Yeah, it was awesome to be here today, and hope this helps whoever needs to hear it.
Yeah, man. Guys, Grant doesn't, like I said, he's kind of quiet and wickedly smart. And so if you ever get a chance to run into him in Colorado Springs, buy him a beer and see if you can get him to talk a little bit. He's a little bit shy, but as you can tell, uber smart. Thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you guys next week.